World Series will head to Truist Park, all tied up at 1-1 after the Astros struck back in a big way in Game 2. I'm Cory McCartney, joined by Grant McAuley, and you're watching Battery Power. And Grant, after bottling up the high-scoring Houston offense in the opener, they struck back with a 7-2 win Wednesday night, and then a process added to a rough stretch for Max Fried.
Yeah, they did. And I think this is the Houston Astros offense that was as advertised coming into this series. You knew at some point that these were hitters that were capable of putting together the big inning or simply stringing together enough hits to put some crooked numbers up there, add it up, and build up a good lead. They actually got some good starting pitching today, which is a big difference from 24 hours ago. And that's the kind of things that make the difference in this game. Everything seemed to be going right for the Astros in Game 2, much the way it seemed to go well for the Braves in Game 1. Of course, none of the starting pitchers in tonight's game suffered the kind of injury that Charlie Morton did, but in a more simplistic look of things, it was a role reversal, that's for sure.
Yeah, Fried's last three outings, by the way, which included 2 against the Dodgers, he has a 6.32 ERA. He's yielded 13 runs over those games. He hasn't allowed that many runs over 3 starts since 2019. But you can say this about Fried and the result of this game after losing Charlie Morton and needing to take pressure off the bullpen, those workhorse arms in particular. That was accomplished. Fried, despite allowing 6 runs, 5 of which were earned, he pitched into the 6th through 86 pitches, and Brian Snitker was able to get a night off for Luke Jackson, Tyler Matzik, AJ Minter, and Will Smith. And with the travel day on Thursday, you're talking about a core of that bullpen that should be fully rested for the 3 games in Atlanta.
Yeah, and those guys were leaned upon heavily in Game 1 of the World Series once Charlie Morton went down. So you needed to find a way in Game 2 to maybe stay away from one, if not all of those guys, in the event that a game kind of gets away from you like it did tonight. The Braves offense was never able to come up with the runs it needed to kind of press the issue where you'd feel like, okay, we're getting into this thing. Now all of a sudden it's a 1-run game, and you start thinking about your strategy for deploying relievers a little bit differently. I didn't really have any problems with just using some of the other arms and staying away from those guys on a night in which your offense couldn't really seem to find the big hit too often. And honestly, with just a couple of runs on the board, you didn't feel like that was going to change the later and later it was getting in the game. And the Astros never really put it away in a walk away kind of fashion where they were just walking all over the Braves bullpen, I guess is the best way to say that. So, yeah, I think you take what silver linings you can out of it. You went to a very tough place to win games, and you split those first 2. Now you get to bring it home, have a little bit of that advantage to yourself, and hopefully we'll see the Braves ready to go. And that bullpen, as you mentioned, getting a little bit extra rest with that off day coming into Game 3 ready, and Ian Anderson awaiting a Houston Astros team that has shown us, as I believed it would in this series, I think these 2 teams are matched up pretty evenly. Offenses, I think now that Charlie Morton's no longer a factor, these rotations are kind of mirror images at this point. And then, of course, the bullpens have shown, at least in the early going, that they're capable too. So it's 2 teams very evenly matched, and we're all even after the first couple of games of the series as it heads to Atlanta, where the Braves have a chance to make a little bit of noise in the World Series at home for the first time in 22 years.
The Astros jumped on the Braves pitching to the tune of 9 hits, including a home run and a double from Jose Altuve. Atlanta, I mean, you mentioned they could not get much going against Jose Urquidy. No Braves player had ever faced him before. Urquidy struck out 7 with no walks over 5 innings. It's the second shortest outing in World Series history, with 7 or more Ks and no walks. A guy who had the highest strike rate of any starter at 57% during the regular season. And outside of Travis d'Arnaud's home run, I mentioned not really a lot to go for. He threw 74% strikes and had a 50% swing and miss rate, Grant. Now, they really just had no answer for a guy that's had one motive tonight: throw strikes. He did it repeatedly, and they just couldn't make anything happen.
Well, that's what Dusty Baker was hoping for out of Urquidy, who did not have so much luck in the championship series against Boston, but was able to bounce back in a big-time way and give Houston a strong 5 innings. And I think we'll over time probably stop mentioning, the shortest start to do X, Y, and Z thing because of how much baseball has changed over the years. We're not talking about, Whitey Ford or this guy or that guy that made, 12, 15, 18, 20-something starts in the World Series. We're talking about expanded playoffs. We're talking about specialized bullpens. And Urquidy certainly did what you were asking him to do if you're the Astros: get you into the middle innings with a chance to win, get staked to a lead, and don't really give much back. I think he did pretty well for himself. And the Astros needed somebody to come in and have a performance that would give them the opportunity to, after their Game 1 disappointment, head to Atlanta all tied up. Urquidy was a big reason why. He moved the ball around well. He's a known strike thrower. That's what he was doing. and his slider looked pretty crisp, and the Braves hitters were having some trouble putting some good swings on that, or I should say making contact on that. So very different night than it was in game one. But for the Braves, for the Astros, you head on over to Atlanta. You forget about the first couple of games, and now you start looking at it as, yeah, guess what? It's a best out of 5. So we'll see if the Braves can make a little noise in that setup again.
I don't know, by the way, that Ozzy Albies is getting enough credit for what he's doing this postseason. He's been quiet, but he's been extremely productive. He's now riding an 11-game hitting streak, which is behind only Mark Lemke at 13 and 96 and Marquise Grissom with 15 between the 95 and 96 postseasons for the longest hitting streaks in franchise history during the postseason. Eddie Rosario was on his own track, by the way. His streak ended tonight in game 2 at 11 straight. But man, I just don't know that we're talking enough about what Ozzy Albies is doing. I mean, he might not be producing as many extra base hits as we're used to seeing him doing. I mean, he has the most of any second baseman in baseball since he became a regular in this lineup. But I just don't know that we're paying enough attention to a guy that's just going out there and getting it done in this postseason.
Yeah, I think because it's been a little bit quieter, kind of in the background. Now, he's been in the middle of some key rallies for the Braves, but no, it hasn't been Ozzy hitting the big 2 or 3 run homer, or the bases clearing double, or racking up a couple of triples in a game, kind of like Mark Lemke did back in that 1991 World Series. But he's simply getting it done. And over the first couple of games in the World Series, I think he's got a whole bunch of hits that have gone a combined about 220 feet is what it feels like. So he's using his speed to his advantage. He's finding his way on base. The Braves just got to figure out a way to string those hits together and get this offense rolling. But it's always great to see a guy like that at the top of the order, whatever he can do to find his way on base. Every single base runner you get in the postseason feels like the opportunity for a rally. And it feels like the thing that when you start talking about the 4th, 5th, 6th inning, where maybe the starter's all of a sudden in a little bit of air quotes trouble in that inning in a 1 or 2 run game, and all of a sudden you're in the bullpen and things are going to change quite a bit. So if Ozzy Albies continues doing what he's doing and gets a little bit of help around him in that lineup, especially back home in Atlanta, that could bode well for the Braves offense. And he has done a fine job of kind of being a bit of a spark plug for him, and they need that.
With the risk of stoking a fire, the shift became the topic du jour for Braves Twitter during the Astros 4-run second inning. And before we go any further, Grant, we know how crucial the shift has been to the Braves' success this season. Last year, they shifted just 7% of the time, which was the lowest in the majors. This year, they were 38.9% of the time against righties and lefties, the 3rd highest percentage against righties. And that led, in righties in particular, the 6th lowest weighted on base average. So it does work until it doesn't. And that's what happened during that big inning for the Astros.
Yeah, it did. And look, you can do it on a case-by-case basis. You can do it based on the count. I'm not discrediting any of those cases or arguments for, in particular, the Gurriel ground ball that looked like it could have been an inning-ending double play. I'm not going to say it could have been anything besides that. But what I am saying is the reaction to it saying, oh, they got to quit shifting. They got to stop doing it. It doesn't work. It's awful. It's not awful when it's working, and it's working a high percentage of the time. And I had, for a little while, going on Twitter there, my mentions, quite a long and very spirited debate. Some good points were made. Some personal insults were thrown back and forth. And Mike Petriello, who works for MLB.com and is very, very good at taking this kind of data and putting it out there in ways that you can really digest it and understand it, said, yeah, maybe you don't want to shift on Gurriel, but it's the wrong thing to assume that the Braves are playing in the World Series if they did not turn their focus to utilizing the shift a lot more, especially in the second half of the season. So both things can be true. The shift is not built to work 100% of the time, but it is built around hitters' tendencies, and clubs are tracking that. And I think that that's what we saw in this game. By and large, what we've seen from the Braves, that they've wanted to tap in on that. And sometimes it just doesn't work. And the hitter is able to hit the ball the other way, punch it through the hole. Sometimes you just get BABIP'd, I like to say as well, where the hitter may not even be intending to put the ball over there, but it just ends up there. Those are the kind of things that happen. But to say the Braves need to throw the shift out completely and just go back to playing straight up all the time, I think that's a little bit misguided. But is there some specialization that you can do that you can second guess? Of course. That's what we do here. We second guess all the moves. In hindsight, it's just in the moment that you only get one crack at it.
Well, and I think it just gets amplified, right? When one batter after Gurriel, you've got Jose Siri, drives in a 1 run, and Martin Maldonado, sets the stage for a scene that looked like it needed the Keystone Cops or Benny Hill music behind it. When Eddie Rosario makes a throw to third, and no one's playing on third base. And you can make the argument, obviously, that if they're not shifting against Yuli Gurriel, that there's a double play and, they
Mhm.
get out of that inning and, it doesn't prove costly. But, sticking with the defensive topic here, everyone's favorite villain made its appearance in the sixth inning when Ozzie Albies on the transfer lost the ball at second. Kyle Tucker slid into the tag, slid in, he's safe. You can argue amongst yourselves whether or not it's nonsense, and what I mean. Basically, you're trying to show that you establish control by going to a replay that slows things down, and
Mhm.
this has always been a benefit of the doubt play, the transfer. I just don't understand why that's something where we're having this conversation, or why we're taking it to the tape, if you will. But there's a benefit of the doubt, and there's not getting one, and then there's obviously what happens when we go to the tape and the umpires are able to take away something that's just been part of baseball for a very long time.
Yeah, and that's just a part of the I guess part and parcel with replay, maybe the best way to put it, because whatever the call is on the field is very likely to stand. So if they end up calling a guy safe, it's probably going to be that guy will be upheld. The call will be upheld. But yeah, I think there's a couple of different things that have come along with replay that aren't really within the spirit of the rule, if you want to refer to it as such. Particularly sliding across the bag, then seeing it in ultra slow motion to see that a guy may have come off by an eyelash and the tag was kept on. So now this guy all of a sudden is out when he clearly beat the play, but you're just holding the tag through because all of a sudden replay has opened up Pandora's box. And now that guy who should be safe is going to be called out based on some version of the letter of the law, but really a bunch of semantics. And I don't know that I need any more semantics to be crammed into baseball, but a replay finds a way to do it time and time again. It's extremely disappointing. There's so much improvement that could be made, and we could waste the rest of the day and tomorrow and the day after that and the whole World Series talking about it. I'm sure we'll see it again. Braves fans haven't really enjoyed replay by and large. Nothing worse than Alec Boehm earlier in the season to get your blood boiling. This wasn't quite that bad. It's just frustrating on a night where everything seemed to not be going right that you had to go through that whole deal again. And I don't think it's within the spirit of replay, the spirit of the rule. And a lot of things have changed, but not all of them for the best. And this, again, just seems to be an exercise in semantics and one that we have to go through time and time and time again.
Well, we've opened ourselves to batching the shift. We've opened ourselves up to batching replay. I feel like we're getting into get off my lawn territory. And Grant,
Yeah.
we're just a couple of young men watching some kids play the game. So we're headed to Atlanta with the World Series all tied up at 1-1, and 3 games at Truist Park where the Braves are 5-0 this postseason, where they have not lost since October 1st, and where they haven't lost back-to-back games since September 14th and 15th, and haven't lost 3 straight since May. Oh, and they're starting Ian Anderson, who has a 1.50 ERA at home in postseason starts. The Braves, it's been a long time since they've won a World Series game at home, and they're obviously going to need Ian Anderson to step up big time as this series shifts to Atlanta.
Yeah, they do. Ian Anderson has been one of their best performers in the postseason. I know he had his trouble with the Dodgers, but I liked what I saw in his second start against LA. We're going to need to see that Ian Anderson come out against the Astros, the guy that has his changeup working, the guy that's commanding his fastball, and the guy that has a good game plan for keeping it outside of the hot zones for some of these Astros hitters. I feel like that's where Max Fried was kind of dancing around in the tendencies of some of Houston's best hitters with some of the pitches he was trying to execute, or maybe simply not getting him quite to where he wanted to. He did make those adjustments. And like you said, those innings that Fried gave them, I think it come in handy big time, because we have seen Anderson leave the game a little bit earlier for strategic purposes. And now we're back in a National League ballpark. And that means there is no DH at Truist Park. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Of course, the last time that Ian Anderson was on the mound and there was no DH, things went pretty well for the Braves. So if you can make a repeat performance of that possible, I'm sure we'll take it however you can get it. And just if you can get as much as you can out of Ian Anderson as he's given you routinely in the playoffs prior to 2021 and really in his young career, then I think that is going to set the stage and maybe lay the foundation for a Braves win. You're going to need Fried, you're going to need Anderson, you're going to need all the innings you can get out of starters, especially now that you have to figure out life after Charlie Morton, as he's no longer available to help the Braves out in this series.
Yeah, and Brian Snitker said after game 2, I mean, when asked about, Max Fried's performance, he said, in the bullpen in particular, he said that, they're going to have 2 games coming up where the bullpen's probably going to have to cover 18 innings. So, as much as you look to figure out how they're going to piece this thing together. I mean, that would seem to be the approach here, that they're going to need the bullpen to pick up the entirety of those. And, Anderson hasn't gone deeper than 5 innings this postseason, lasted 3 innings and 4 innings in those starts against the Dodgers. It's going to be interesting, though, we talked about unfamiliarity being a real key here. No Brave has ever faced Luis Garcia, who the Astros will throw out in Game 3. Marvin Gonzalez is the only Houston player who's ever faced Anderson. He's on Houston's roster, but he is yet to pick up a bat at all this postseason. So, I just, when you think about Garcia with the outing he's coming off of, he threw 5 2/3 scoreless against the Red Sox in the ALCS clincher, but he also allowed a combined 10 earned runs in his 2 previous starts before that. We've seen the highs and we've seen the lows of Anderson, already just for a few starts of this postseason. This is really kind of set up to be a very interesting pitching matchup amongst 2 guys who have shown some extreme highs so far during these playoffs.
A couple of young guys who have had some moments in the postseason, and a couple of young guys who these 2 teams are looking to build their rotation, at least in and around for the next few years, and could be major players in those starting 5s. But now the onus is on them to pitch the biggest game of their life and give their clubs the best outing that they can. For Ian Anderson, with the resume he's had overall, again, with those Dodgers starts being shorter than you want them to be, or despite that being the case, I think Anderson has given the Braves a chance to win more times than not when he takes the mound. They'll be asking for him to do it again. And the Astros, the exact same thing will be asked of Garcia when he toes the slab at Truist Park as well.
The Braves have not won a home World Series game since Game 6 of the 1995 World Series, the clincher for the franchise's only title in Atlanta. They'll look to end that drought as early as Friday night, and we'll be along for the ride here on Battery Power. So if you haven't already, go to the Talking Chop YouTube channel, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get alerts on every new episode. I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McAuley. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in next time, Braves Country.